What if magicians were never really trying to escape reality? What if magic was never about forcing the universe to obey human desire, but about teaching the human being how to recognize the hidden order already moving through life? When most people hear the word magic, they imagine candles, demons, secret books, forbidden rituals, and mysterious ceremonies. But transcendental magic points to something much deeper. The visible world is not the whole world. Symbols are not lifeless drawings. Ritual is not empty theater. And the will, when it is trained, can become a bridge between matter and spirit. That is why this subject has attracted philosophers, mystics, occultists, and secret societies for centuries. Not because it promises cheap miracles, but because it asks a much deeper question. What would happen if you became conscious of the invisible forces that are already shaping your life? Transcendental magic, in its modern form, is strongly connected to Éliphas Lévi, the French occultist whose dogme et rituel de la haute magie was translated as transcendental magic. Lévi did not invent the entire tradition. He gathered older currents of thought and gave them a language that went on to influence modern Western occultism. So when we talk about transcendental magic, we are not talking about simple superstition. We are talking about high magic, a disciplined path that uses symbols, correspondences, ritual, imagination, and will to elevate consciousness and align the human being with higher laws. Ordinary magic asks, how do I get what I want? Transcendental magic asks, who is the one who wants? And that difference changes everything. To understand it, we have to go back to a time before the phrase became famous. In the ancient pagan and Hellenistic worlds, the universe was not seen as a dead machine. It was seen as alive with meaning. The stars, the elements, the gods, the seasons, and sacred places were understood as powers of nature, cosmic functions, and dimensions of the soul. In the Egyptian, Greek, and Hermetic imagination, the upper world reflected the lower world. The human being reflected the universe. The microcosm mirrored the macrocosm. This is one of the great keys of occult philosophy. The human being is a small universe, a symbolic temple where the body, emotion, imagination, intellect, and spirit all meet. Hermetic and Neoplatonic traditions taught that reality flows from a higher source into lower levels, and that the soul can ascend through purification, contemplation, and sacred practice. Theurgy, meaning divine work, was understood as a path meant to elevate the soul toward higher principles. That is why transcendental magic connects to the perennial philosophy. This is the idea that beneath many spiritual traditions, there is a recurring pattern. Different names, different myths, and different symbols, but a similar intuition. Reality has a visible surface and an invisible depth, and human beings can awaken to that depth. And in my opinion, this is why transcendental magic still matters. It reminds us that a world stripped of symbol becomes spiritually exhausting. When nothing means anything beyond its use or its price, the soul begins to starve. As Christianity spread, many older ideas were condemned, transformed, or absorbed into new frameworks. The gods became angels, demons, virtues, powers, or planetary intelligences. Pagan temples gave way to churches, but the hunger for hidden knowledge did not disappear. In medieval and Renaissance Europe, magic existed in tension with religion. Some forms were attacked as demonic or heretical. But angelic, natural, or devotional magic was often practiced by people who did not see themselves as enemies of God. They saw themselves as students of divine creation. Kabbalah also became essential. It offered a symbolic map of creation through divine names, emanations, letters, numbers, and the relationship between the infinite God and the manifested universe. For the magician, divine names were formulas of order. A ritual circle was a diagram of the cosmos and consciousness. The wand represented directed will. The pentagram became a sign of the human microcosm, with spirit governing the elements. Then came the Renaissance. Marsilio Ficino, Pico della Mirandola, Agrippa, and Paracelsus lived in a world where philosophy, medicine, astrology, theology, and natural magic had not yet been fully separated. Agrippa's 3 books of occult. Philosophy organized reality into the elemental world, the celestial world, and the intellectual or divine world. This mattered because transcendental magic depends on a vertical view of reality. A physical object may correspond to a planet, a color, a number, an angelic intelligence, or a spiritual principle. The point is not childish association. The point is symbolic participation. This is why training mattered. The magician was expected to discipline the passions, sharpen concentration, purify intention, and understand the symbols being used. Without inner order, ritual becomes theater. Without ethical grounding, will becomes appetite. Without knowledge, imagination becomes delusion. Then, in the 19th century, Éliphas Lévi stepped into this long stream of tradition and gave it a new voice. He presented magic as a sacred science, an ancient wisdom preserved through symbols, initiations, and secret traditions. Whether every historical claim he made holds up perfectly is a separate question. What matters is that his synthesis reshaped occultism. For Lévi, the will was central. The true magician was not someone with random supernatural powers. The true magician was someone who had learned to command himself. Imagination was also central, not as fantasy, but as the power that gives form to invisible forces. He also wrote about the astral light, a subtle medium of images, influences, and impressions. Later occultists interpreted this idea metaphysically, psychologically, and symbolically. But the core idea was that human beings do not live only in physical space. They also live in a field of images and forces that shape thought, desire, and destiny. And this is where transcendental magic becomes surprisingly modern. Even if someone does not accept every occult doctrine literally, it is hard to deny that human beings are shaped by invisible images. A nation can be moved by symbols. A ritual can change identity. A word can alter consciousness. An image can direct behavior for a lifetime. So the real question becomes this: are you consciously working with the symbols that shape you, or are they working through you without your knowledge? If this deeper way of understanding magic is making sense, leave a like. It helps serious esoteric content reach people who are looking for more than surface-level explanations. Levi's influence flowed into the occult revival. The Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn organized Kabbalah, tarot, astrology, alchemy, ceremonial magic, and Rosicrucian symbolism into a graded initiatory system. Later figures like Dion Fortune, Israel Regardie, and Aleister Crowley carried this current forward. Through Thelema, Crowley emphasized true will. This does not mean doing whatever you feel like. It means discovering the deepest current of your being beneath fear, conditioning, and confusion. This connects directly to transcendental magic, because the magician's will must become more than personal craving. It must align with a deeper order. This is also why secret societies are connected to the subject. Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, the Golden Dawn, the Ordo Templi Orientis, and other initiatory bodies are not all the same. But they often share symbols, grades, allegories, ritual drama, moral instruction, and the gradual unveiling of meaning. The secrecy is often misunderstood. Sometimes, secrecy protects power. Sometimes it creates mystique. But at its best, secrecy protects the student from rushing into meanings they are not ready to carry. In initiation, a symbol is lived, contemplated, revisited, and slowly understood. And that raises a question worth thinking about. Does secrecy protect sacred knowledge, or does it sometimes hide that knowledge from the people who need it most? Write your thoughts in the comments. At the heart of all this is the spiritual anatomy of the human being. Transcendental magic assumes that you are more than a physical body, but it does not despise the body. The body is the base of the temple. The emotions are raw forces. The imagination is a doorway. The intellect perceives order. The will is the axis that can bring the scattered parts of the self into alignment. This is why the image of the magician inside a circle is so powerful. The circle is the ordered self. Outside the circle are the forces that pull, tempt, confuse, inspire, and terrify. Inside the circle is the center. Every person knows what it feels like to be pulled apart by desire, anxiety, memory, fear, and hope. Transcendental magic says the human being can become a conscious mediator between these forces instead of being a victim of them. Modern psychology gives us one useful lens here. Carl Jung helped many readers think about symbols, archetypes, dreams, and the unconscious as living realities within the psyche. But reducing transcendental magic to psychology alone would flatten it. Its power lives in the tension between worlds. It is spiritual, symbolic, psychological, philosophical, practical, and mystical. Its final aim is not control, but union with a higher order. This is why transcendental magic still matters today. We live in an age of information, but not necessarily an age of wisdom. We have more images than any civilization before us, but less training in how those images control us. We have more freedom of desire, but often less understanding of will. Transcendental magic teaches that symbols can enslave or liberate. Ritual can be empty performance, or it can become conscious transformation. And the invisible is not always somewhere else. Sometimes the invisible is the pattern operating inside your own thoughts. So maybe the real secret of transcendental magic is not that a few hidden masters knew how to control the universe. Maybe the deeper secret is that most people are controlled by forces they never learned to name. And the first act of magic is naming them. Not to become arrogant, not to dominate others, not to chase fantasy, but to become awake. So when you see the pentagram, the ritual circle, the tarot card, the alchemical symbol, the Masonic tracing board, the Rosicrucian rose, or the magician raising the wand, do not only ask, "Is this real?" Ask a better question. What part of reality is this symbol trying to reveal? Because once you understand that, transcendental magic stops looking like an escape from the world. It becomes a way of entering the world more consciously. Maybe that is why this tradition survived through pagan temples, Hermetic texts, grimoires, secret societies, occult orders, and modern spiritual movements. Not because every claim was perfect, but because the central hunger never disappeared. So I want to ask you one final question. Do you see transcendental magic more as a spiritual science, a symbolic language, a psychological discipline, or a path of initiation? Comment below. And if this video helped you see magic through a deeper lens, subscribe, share it with someone who studies occultism, spirituality, or symbolism, and continue with the playlist appearing on the screen now. Each video is one piece of a larger map. The more pieces you gather, the more the hidden pattern begins to appear.